Also, the Pennsylvania Association of School Administrators came out with a survey, and that was released this week. And it's pretty depressing if you read what's in the survey. They surveyed school districts across the state. It was answered by 56% of the school districts, and more than 3/4 plan to increase property taxes next year, which is the largest one in 5 years. Nearly 60% have laid off staff since 2010, 2011, and teachers account for more than 40% of these furloughs. About 70% haven't filled some positions after retirement and resignations. And if you've been at our budget meetings, we are one of them, because we are not filling, I believe it's 14 positions this year. More than 1/4 have put hiring freezes into effect, and I believe that's us also, because we have in our budget not to hire, I believe, any new positions. In the coming year, about 1 in 7 are planning to lay off teachers. Class sizes have increased in 64% of these districts since 2010 and 11. And since 2010 and 11, 783 academic programs have been cut, with another 370 expected to be reduced or eliminated in the coming school year. And finally, 1/3 are expecting to reduce, eliminate, or charge a fee for some extracurricular activities. So, and what's interesting is that of these districts that responded, it says in here that the local share of total school funding has increased from 37% in 2010 to 45% in 2013-14, but yet ours, I believe, is 77%. That's how much of the budget comes from local funding, so we have to provide 77%. So based on that, I know at the last finance meeting, I had mentioned about possibly reducing the proposed final budget that we passed from the 3.61, getting it down under 3%. Based on all this news, I have changed my mind, and I am asking everybody to support the proposed budget as we passed a month ago. There's some other issues, but we have taken out the $600,000. So I'm going to let Kathy summarize where we stand now with that out, so you can all see what. And then we need to talk about future years and how this is going to affect us. So. Oh, okay. Is that?
It is missing.
Oh, okay. So while Kathy's getting that ready, I thought it was on. Oh, breakfast?
Having breakfast.
This is going to be a long meeting.
No,
This is a very long meeting.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
no breakfast?
How about pizza?
While we are waiting, and I don't know if there's any other board members who want to weigh in before we go over anything, you're welcome to comment. Everybody's very quiet. Well, now you will.
status, and I think Mr. Sonny's went over this well this evening. We did receive approval from the PDE to use the user's referendum exception. Currently, the Act 1 increase would provide for a 2.6272 mil increase. The referendum exception provides for a 1.8874 mil increase, which brings our total mills to 129.6227 at the maximum. That equals 4.5146 mil increase. 3.61 for Act 1 for the Peasers and 2.1 for Act 1 for a total of 5.61. Revenue generated by the referendum exception, $1,114,804, and the median assessed property value in our district of Bucks County is $30,430, which means homeowners will pay an additional $137.38 if the board approves the maximum tax rate of 129.6227.
Yeah, where's the 33 bucks?
And this is just a budget timeline for where we fall through here. And where we're at today, we're down to the budget update for finance meeting on June 10th, and number of meetings. This is where we're standing at today with revenues from the time we started this in January through April and now through June. As you can see, we're currently looking at a deficit of $379,201 if we go to the maximum increase. Again, at the May 1st meeting, I had discussed maybe using some additional committed fund balance moving forward for to balance the budget. Revenues this year, this is where the changes were made. I show how we started out in January, moved through June. The reason you're seeing a decrease in local revenue has to do with the homestead, farmstead values. I think I told you very early on that once we received the information from the state regarding homestead, farmstead, that would move from local revenue to state revenue, because that's where that comes from. And that also, the state revenue then shows two things. It shows an increase of $1.7 million, but I also removed the $600,000 that we had put in there originally regarding the additional grant dollars. The federal dollars we increased slightly for access. What we try to do with our federal programs is to make sure that our access dollars equal. Our federal dollars equal both in revenues and expenditures, so we wanted to make sure that was. How did we get here to balance the budget? There were staff reductions in new positions that were eliminated either through attrition or just eliminated. New positions were taken out of the budget. Over-enrollment aids were eliminated because of the sister school pilot program. Medical insurance, we developed premium rates were reduced. We originally had them at 10%, we reduced them to 5%, and if necessary, we will use some of our self-insurance fund balance. The tech school, due to enrollment reduction, that was down from what I had projected in January. Secondary and one-to-one replacements, we moved from the purchase to the leasing, or recommending that. Special education BCIU access, there had been a double duplicate entry and we removed that. Non-routine maintenance, we reduced the original amount. We originally had $650 in there and we reduced it down to $270,000. The bus replacement, we took out $700,000 out of the general fund, and when we have the discussion, or if we have the discussion to replace buses for the 15-16 school year later on in the fall, a decision will need to be made whether to lease or purchase those capital projects. Technology transfer, we also decreased that amount of money that we originally had in there. Our bond payment debt service, we were able to reduce that by $600,000. That's a one-time savings this year. We also did our debt restructuring that spread out our debt for a number of years, so we'll have level debt moving forward. Staff development, there was a reduction there. We received a favorable rate with our vendors who we purchase our electric from. We were able to reduce the budget this year. And our vehicle and liability insurance, I actually had budgeted a larger increase than what was needed there. Act 1 index, now we get into the revenue side. What do we do on the revenue side? We suggested that we go to the maximum Act 1 index to increase local tax revenue. We also were approved and recommending that we go to the use of referendum exception to increase local tax revenue. I also increased my assumptions regarding the amount of earned income tax we would receive. That's a change to local revenue. Our access revenue assumptions, we increased that as well. And I decreased the state grant assumptions based on all the information that we've been reading from the state in regard to the governor's budget. The other two areas that we are using to balance the budget is the use of the PSERS committed fund balance, and also again, recommending that to balance the budget, we use and set aside additional committed funds to cover the cost of technology and non-routine maintenance items, or for some other purpose. But I like to usually try to, if we're going to use committed funds, I like to have a specific use set aside so we can track this. Just a little bit of the PSERS history, and this is one of the things that's going to be with us for the next several years. The increase in PSERS. The net increase to the PSERS this year is $1.3 million. Again, a large amount of money that, in addition to everything else going up, is something that we have to contain with. Again, in 2016 and 2017, those years we're all looking at $1 million as well, assuming our payroll expenses do not increase. So if you have increasing payroll expenses, your PSERS obligation is also going to increase. Again, we get into 2018, we can take a little bit of, hopefully, a breather till then, but we do have a number of years before we get to there. I think it's important that we keep that in the back of our mind. I also show you the tax mill history, which I've shown before, as to, at the bottom, we've seen this before, if we would have gone to the Act 1 index all the years where we could have, what the increases would have been on that median assessed value. So, again, we're chugging away at this. But again, if you look at our rates, we, total mills, going across for the last couple of years, 10.0727, versus if we would have gone to the allowable Act 1 index, we would have been at 12.1755. So we are still under what the maximum we could have been taxing at.
Must be,
That's my presentation.
Somebody put up a switch there.
Mr. Shepherd, I have a question regarding.
Sure.
Mr. Johnson, you said that there was, in the one slide with the adjustments, there was still a deficit of a little over 300,000. And I think, but it didn't actually pay, but it was one of the last slides that you said that we were using the $1.1 million from the PSERS committed funds, and then we're going to use fund balance to, for that.
Right, I was going to ask, I think in my recommendations to the board, is I'm asking the board to actually commit the difference out of fund balance, so that we set that money aside to balance the budget, rather than just taking it out of fund balance, letting us money see if we need it. That way it's set aside to actually balance the budget.
And you said you're using it for non-routine maintenance, which that's the 650.
Right, we don't specifically have to name a use for it, but for accounting reasons, for me, I ask that we name how we're going to use it so that I can account for how much of that money am I actually spending. Because again, if Mr. Loeffler doesn't need to spend his additional $20,000 at the end of the 14-15 school year, I will not have needed to transfer all those monies that have been committed, and then that'll go right back into fund balance. So it's just an easy way for me to keep track of the balance.
Right, but let's say that budget spends its whole budget, and part of it would go you would earmark for technology as well, and let's say those two budgets spend up to what they're budgeted, but there's some other budgets that underspend, but now we've taken it out of fund
Well,
balance, so then we would
that money's
just put it
still,
back.
that money at the end of the, again, that money at the end of 14-15 will also revert back to.
It'll go back into
fund
that.
balance,
Okay,
right?
so
So
it's just-
whether we spend all of that or we don't spend other money, whatever's remaining will go back into fund balance.
Okay, and my other question is relating to the one-to-one and the lease versus purchase, because when we talked about the technology bids, I said, you know, leasing is less than purchasing, and you said, no, purchasing is less than leasing. But on the slide, you said one of the things that we reduced was we went to leasing instead of purchasing, and that was saving us money.
It saves you, it's cash flow.
Because we're
It's cash
spreading it
flow,
out.
Because we're spreading out, rather than taking $500,000, I would, in order to do that, I would have to increase the budget by $500,000.
So, and that's one thing I was gonna mention, because then that carries over, plus we're gonna add another grade next year, which is another, according to about 100
Right,
and
44,000, or whatever that is.
yeah, well, you have here 159 or somewhere around there. So that's an addition, besides which the current year, we're gonna keep carrying for 3 years. I'm gonna add another grade.
Well, 2 more years of adding grades.
Eventually, you'll be spending $500,000 a year for lease payments or more. But again, you're adding it to your budget incrementally. And again, hopefully along the way, there's something that's dropping off to.
And it's the same thing we tried to do with the debt service. We tried to schedule it out so it's a little easier to budget for. We know it's coming. Unfortunately, it's coming, but at least we know the amount and it's kind of smooths it out.
Okay. Oh, and I just wanted to, I was just reading some of the information that was released in the past couple weeks about the budget, that the PSERS rate, I mean, you have it, you show it going up to 2018, but it stays over 30% until the year 2034, is that correct?
That's correct, but it does not have those large jumps anymore. I mean, we're going to peak at the jumps and then we're going to plateau, but the incremental increases will be less.
Right, but we're gonna have that, it's
You're
not
gonna
gonna go
have-
down
it's
for
gonna-
the next, until
It's not gonna
another
go down,
20 years.
it's gonna go up 30%, it's gonna plateau. I mean, that's what's projected.
Anybody else have any questions?
I just have another question. At I think it was the May 13th meeting, we talked about reducing 14 positions. And Dr. Redding, you had talked about percentages. Could you just, I don't know if I wrote them down correctly, the percentage that we're reducing the, do you know, have that?
I don't have it.
Percentage of teaching staff. 508 teachers now.
Right, I know it was very low, Mrs. Yardley. It was actually a higher percentage, I think about 6% administrative, maybe 2% certified, and maybe point something percent support staff.
Okay, based on what you've heard, do we need to continue this discussion, or is everybody, do we have enough votes to move forward with the motion, which we'll bring up at the special board meeting?
Mrs., when I inquired about about the date of the vote, Mrs. John told me if we don't vote tonight, it jeopardizes it affects, you know, the tax bills and then the dates that we collect them, so we need to vote tonight, otherwise it changes everything else.
Yes, and to be honest with you, I don't know what would happen in the next 2 weeks that would make this situation any better. Seriously, if you have some ideas, but I don't think the state does. I don't think, you know.
clarify.
Yes, I could do that. For Dwayne, do you want
You can bring it up?
to?
Yes
Okay.
or no, is what you
He
said.
said okay.
You saying I'm saying, I'm saying, yes.
You're okay with it? Is that,
I'm fine with voting on it tonight, yeah.
okay, yeah, Steve, you're okay, okay. I think that, okay, maybe I think we should just move on and then we'll, if anybody else, when we get to the special meeting, we can make some comments if you don't.
Did you want me to go over the commitments as well? Why I'm asking for the board to also vote
Oh,
on
sure, I'm
commitments
sorry,
tonight. As part of our annual process, we don't, for our commitments, we don't necessarily have to say the dollar value now, but we do have to go on record that we do want to commit some amount of money when we go through closing the books for certain items. So I've listed those certain items that we have done in the past. Future retirement rate increases. We still have financial software costs that are still on the books, and we are still working on some implementation items, so I would ask that you recommit those funds. Equipment and supplies, which is what we've kind of done in the past, and technology, which is what we discussed this evening. Again, you don't have to list those in dollars right now. We also talk about the homestead farmstead exclusion. I do want to go over that. That amounts to $1,509 as an exclusion for the millage rate to be applied to. And also to restate the installment dates for next year, for 14-15 to be August 31st, October 31st, and December 15th.
Okay, is everybody okay with that? The preserved property tax billing process, I believe Kathy sent a memo, right? That we all have. Because that was just something new we've done this year where at the last meeting we voted to freeze property taxes on preserved properties in, I believe it's 3 of the municipalities. Kathy is proposing the procedure that they would be billed for the full tax based on the bill, and then when they paid, they would get a refund for the increase. So you want to explain why that's?
Right, different school districts are doing things different ways. But that, to me, seemed, when I talked with some of my colleagues, that seemed to be the method that was being employed, because then the property owners are entitled also to homestead, farmstead, so those need to be calculated. So to do anything other than that will throw off the homestead, farmstead calculation. So I believe the cleanest way is have the homeowner pay the bill, and then we will issue a refund to them.
Will that be just for this year because it's new, or will that be every year?
That would be every year.
That would be every year.
Every year.
Because
okay.
again, we will need to get from the municipalities a list of those properties that annually that are approved by them, so that we have a list as to whom. I'll be working with our tax collectors. They'll have to notify us when those particular bills are due.
I just wanted to clarify, we approved it for all of the municipalities, but only 3 right
Only
now
3,
have
that's
properties
correct.
that qualify.
That's correct, only 3 have properties in
Okay, try to move through, we have 3 more items. Number 12, bank depositories, that's our standard procedure we do every year at this time, right, Kathy, to approve. So we have the banks listed A through J. Number 13 is also, we have to approve the cooperative purchasing and participation, A through H. And nothing new there? or
Nothing
anything
new.
we- Okay. And then, is this what you were giving
Yes,
me
that's
before?
what I was giving, yeah.
Okay, so that's why I started talking about lunch. Item 14 is the 2014-2015 lunch prices. Oh, it says no change, that's it. So there'll be no increase in breakfast or lunch prices. So we are just approving those. Thank God. All right. So now we're done, and we will open it up for public comment before we begin the special board meeting. Anyone? Oh, this would be great.
Go to the other side.
I guess not, so we're adjourned, and
It's up to you.
Peter, it's up to you
As long as I
now.
can see him.
Yes, we do
As long as I can see the podium.
Maybe nobody's coming.
Yeah, maybe I don't know.
There's nobody's talking.
Did he adjourn the meeting? Did he adjourn the meeting?
I don't know.
I didn't hear him adjourn it.